Happy New Year. Eric Walczykowski here, CEO of Bespoke Partners and host of Tailored Talent. Today, I'm joined once again with our Chief Commercial Officer, Adam Boone. Boone, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric. Happy New Year.
Fantastic. Did you have a nice holiday?
Oh, amazing holidays. Really enjoyable and just fantastic to wrap up the year the way we did at Bespoke. You can't ask for a better Christmas present than what our team accomplished this past year.
No doubt. And I think, look, last week we talked about gratitude and just what an amazing year. But now that the results are in, Boone, talk to me a little bit about the results at Bespoke Partners.
Yeah, well, we're still closing the books, but the way the numbers are looking right now, with everything, we had a roughly 80% increase in our profit in 2025, which is just astonishing. The profit growth that we've had there, that was accompanied with a over 35% increase in our revenue, an over 40% increase in our bookings, and our funnel, our top of funnel, our growth in opportunities grew over 60%. Like I said, it's just astonishing what our team accomplished this year. And really, honestly, that shows the trust that clients have put in our team to really solve their hardest, toughest searches.
No doubt. And look, I think when you think about it, it all begins with outstanding search work, right? We don't accomplish any of those things without that outstanding team that solves the toughest searches for our private equity software clients. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, 100% agreement. Yes. We had over 280 placements in 2025, which is a record for us, of course. And that's around a 26% increase from 2024. So again, it just shows the level of trust and how hard our team focuses on solving these difficult searches for our clients. I also want to note, we doubled the amount of work we did at the VP and senior VP level in 2025. We're well known for our C-suite work, but clients are learning that in fact we also do VP and SVP level work as well. Those are absolutely mission critical executive roles, and we've doubled the amount of work we've done at that level in 2025.
No, fantastic. Look, and I think this goes to the overarching strategy we have at Bespoke Partners, which is focus wins. And it's focus on private equity software. It's focus within the function and truly adding value to our clients in software, in those functions. And it's truly unmatched in the industry. I mean, when I think about our teams, I can't think of teams that have done anywhere near the amount of work in their particular area of software at that scale in that function. And I think, as we talked about, I think focus wins, and I think focus adds immense value to our clients. But hey, let's turn towards 2026. I know your team's been hard at work in looking at different ways to analyze the impact of an executive at a portfolio company. Talk to me a little bit about some of the work that you've done on the value of that executive.
Yeah, 100%. I'll just note that, we're considering this as we're looking at 2026, and we've started to see exits resume and picking back up. I think overall, all the analysis in the industry is that this PE recovery that began in 2025 is going to accelerate this year. But what that does is it really puts the spotlight on talent and on leadership talent. Overall, turnover is down 50% from the historical averages. And what that means is, executives are not leaving their seats. They want to see their companies through to exit. That's really what their focus is on. So it's increasingly harder to pry them out of their seats to go to a new assignment. They want to get through to exit. And so
let's
that's
pause on that really quick, because this is absolutely astounding. Turnover is off 50%, which means that only half the executives are naturally turning right now in the market. And so what I think about that, one, is that just tightens the talent market significantly, because look, our clients want the best of the best. They want executives that are in a chair, that don't need to go to a job, that run to something, not away from something.
Exactly.
And what we're seeing broadly across the market right now is turnover is off 50%. And so that's taken that talent market that is tight, and it's just cinched it up even tighter.
Even tighter, yeah, which is contrarian, right? I mean, we track turnover at 1,600 software and SaaS portfolio companies across PE sponsors. We have a very, very large sample of the market, and we track turnover to get a sense for whether the market is tightening or loosening, what that all means for the talent market. And normally, when turnover is dropping like that, it means that the market's loosening, because when there's high turnover, then it means there's a lot of recruiting going on. There are, a lot of leadership recruiting going on, et cetera. But this is absolutely contrarian. Turnover is dropping, yet at the same time, the market is tightening. So it is not what you'd expect to see in normal conditions. And that's because of this rebound in exits and the fact that now all these executives are staying in seat. They want to see their portfolio companies through to exit and achieve the investment thesis for their sponsors. So it's just a fascinating and frankly very challenging time in landing talent for a lot of these firms.
No, it absolutely is. And I think, this always goes back to, you've got to have the right search partner, because you have to understand what the market looks like. And that's not just part of the market, that's the whole market. Because when turnover is down 50%, it's not just about the usual suspects. You've got to have a holistic view of the market, and you've got to be able to filter that view and contract it down to the bullseye, and then be able to expand it real time, so that you get a view of, well, if the 5 usual suspects aren't available now, what does the next list look like, and who are the good lookalike candidates? And I think, once again, that seeds to Bespoke Partners' expertise in software and function, but then also the executive index, which, we've already indexed the market. We know everybody in the market.
100%. Everybody, like you're saying, everybody wants that unicorn, right? They want that unicorn executive. They want the one who has been in the seat before, they've been in the market before, they've been at that scale before, they've achieved the desired exit before, right? That's the unicorn. But there's huge demand for these unicorns, right? There are maybe 3 people who can solve a search if you're fixated on all those factors being identical. So the much better strategy is to widen the aperture, understand the full market from the top down, and then you can flex in certain areas on the scorecard, and you can get much better visibility and understanding of who else might solve that search for you. Because at the end of the day, and referring to some of that analysis we've been doing on the impact of an executive, an executive in a seat at a portfolio company can be $1 billion impact on the enterprise value of that company at the end of the day. $1 billion impact. So
these effectively are $1 billion decisions.
$1 billion decisions, 100%. In other words, if you get the wrong person in the seat, and we ran the math here, right? We did the analysis. If you take a higher end middle market SaaS company, and the plan is that they're going to be acquired by a sponsor, they're going to head to exit over 4 years. Well, the attribution of value averages around $1 billion to each one of the senior C-suite executives. Of course, it's more or less depending on the scale and the market, but that's basically what the figures show for that size of company. What that means is, if you get the wrong executive in seat, or you don't get an executive in seat, then you're putting at risk $1 billion in overall value at exit, which is just huge, critical. And the other part of that is, there's also a portion of that growth, right? The enterprise value creation that you're leaning on those executives for. And our data shows that 2 roles, CEO and CRO, actually carry the lion's share of that burden. A CEO can be expected at that modeling we did of producing around $750 million in value toward the exit valuation, and a CRO actually is responsible for growing almost $1 billion in value in their
So the CRO's role has a higher value than the CEO's role.
Yes, and intuitively that sort of makes sense, that a strong CEO, but who is saddled with, say, a CRO who can't produce, still cannot win the day, right? That CRO is so mission critical. And I think that's part of the reason that we see such a huge surge in activity for our go-to-market practice, because our team, they are the experts in finding the right CRO.
No doubt. Look, I mean, this might be a little bit of a chicken and the egg deal, because you can't get the right CRO without the right CEO. But I do understand how you are ascribing revenue growth, which is part of every value creation plan, on the right CRO.
100%. The other interesting thing, though, is EBITDA, right? And that, of course, is one of the absolutely essential metrics that all the sponsors track and factor in their thinking around valuation. And we have our partner TriSearch, that is a search firm we work with. TriSearch, they're the experts at director level searches in various functions. They are real pros at that stuff. Well, they've calculated a fascinating model that looks at EBITDA leakage in the typical hold period for portfolio company. In other words, if you don't have an executive in seat, or someone in that particular seat for a given period, what happens to EBITDA and the expected growth there? So we took that and we ran our own version of it, looking at the C-suite, right? And in the modeling we did, we found out that, look, if you have 4 portfolio companies and you have an average of 3 senior executive openings at each one, and if those openings remain unfilled for the typical search days to close, in other words, the typical executive search firm takes upwards of 150 days to close a search, well, you're looking at leaking $12 million in EBITDA, right there, just because of the delay it takes for those search firms to solve
So
those searches.
time that the executive was identified that we need them to time that they joined the company,
Right.
you're looking at $12 million of EBITDA leakage.
Exactly. And what that equates to, if you carry that out to exit, that's $135 million in lost enterprise value at exit if you hold to the same exit date. Now, in practice, what that probably means is they're going to delay exit because they want to, achieve a certain level of growth, et cetera. But that's what that means. It's amplified because of that time that you don't have someone in seat. Now, you work with us and we change the math. So our days to close is half the industry average. And we give the number of 90, but in many cases it's far below 90 days in terms of the number of days to close. So well below half the industry average. So at a minimum, you're looking at recovering $70 million in that enterprise value at exit by working with us. That's massive.
At a minimum, because look, I think it's fascinating in this industry as the salespeople in executive search come in really strong and they give you this confidence they're going to close the search. But the underbelly of the search industry is when you sign with a search firm, only 50% of those searches are actually filled.
Yes, that is the dirty little secret of the industry, Eric. The reality is that only half the time search firms are able to place an executive. Half the time, 50%. But at Bespoke, our placement rate is 98%. So that is almost double the rate of the average search firm.
The model that I was just talking about, we're giving them the benefit of the doubt that they actually do solve the search. And as we know, half the time that's not the case. They just end up walking away and not being able to solve the search. So, one of the areas of pride that I have for the team here is just the grit we have and never quitting and never stopping until we solve that search. It is part of a bespoke search. It's part of our DNA.
It's part of our DNA. It's who we are. We say winners win, and which means we find a way. But here's the other thing, right? It's worse to place the wrong candidate than no candidate, but we also cover that. And so when we look at this, we're closing 99% of our searches. 95% of those are in the chair 12 months later.
Yes.
So it's not that we're just filling this and solving with anybody. We're actually solving this with people who are adding value 12 months after the search has been solved.
And all that flows back to what you were talking about earlier, Eric, which is, our dedication to giving our clients the full picture of the market out there, all the potential candidates, that top-down view that our executive index provides and our team's ability to really understand how to connect the dots for the client. Does this potential step up have the skill set needed to take the top job? Or will this person in an adjacent market be able to transfer their playbook to the end market that the sponsor's in? Those are the things our team is uniquely qualified to answer. They connect the dots between talent and the value creation plan. And no one else in the industry does that as well.
No, absolutely. It comes back to the focus. And so, again, I've got this saying that I use way too much is, in God I trust, all others bring data. And Boone, you just brought data that suggests a CEO is worth $750 million at a certain scale. A CRO is worth $1 billion at a certain scale. And I think about the industry solving 50% of their searches. We're solving 99 with 95% in their chair 12 months later. I don't understand what the choice would be, right? I mean, the choice is when you're talking about a $750 million to $1 billion executive, you've got to go with someone who knows the market inside and out, that has delivered results inside and out since day one, that has produced exits since day one. I just, again, I think the data speaks volumes.
1000% it does. And I agree with you. I can't imagine why you'd turn to anybody else to try and solve your search. I mean, there's no one who is in there all day, every day, scrappy, fighting, figuring out how to land the right executives and understanding truly how they fit into the value creation context for a sponsor.
Wow, that analysis is absolutely fantastic, Boone. Let's turn the page and talk about 2026. What are you expecting in 2026?
Yeah. So as I alluded to earlier, we're going to see the continued recovery in terms of PE, in terms of deal flow. We saw exits start to uptick. Some, lots of heat in the IPO area, lots of interest there, and we see a bunch more of that coming. And then, of course, there's been a bunch of sponsor-to-sponsor activity leading to exits. So, very excited to see that exit uptick happening. But I'll tell you, man, the portfolio bloat is going to keep things super, super tight for some time to come. In its last report of the year, PitchBook said that there are now nearly 13,000 portfolio companies held by U.S. private equity firms, and that's just astonishing, right? That is an all-time high. It's major, major bloat. It's going to take a very long time to unwind all of that. All those 13,000 companies eventually are going to need to find an exit of some kind if they make it, and that is going to be really occupying and creating a logjam, if you will, at the exit for a lot of these companies.
For sure. And look, I mean, I think the good news is, barring any geopolitical disaster, I think cost of capital has reached its high. I think, as we look into 2026, I think it's no secret that at a minimum, the back half of the year, we're going to get a very dovish Fed, which I think is going to continue to keep rates low, which will feed the ability of these private equity firms to put the money to work and get deals done. I was fascinated.
Yes.
I was talking with a scaled software firm before the holidays, and they were talking about, well, hey, when we exit, it's $6 to $8 billion, and there are not too many people that can write that check. Well, I disagree. I mean, I think that when you start looking at the amounts that these funds have raised and the future of private equity, I think we're going to see larger and larger what we used to call mega deals being done by private equity as opposed to going public. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's just colossal mounds of dry powder out there waiting to be put to work. We've seen so much that's been committed, and yes, there is a slowdown in fundraising in the middle market in 2025. But overall, it still remains that there's just masses of dry powder to be put to work. And one of the ways that'll happen is in sponsor to sponsor deals. And as you said, with cost of capital declining, I think the leverage is going to become easier, and a lot more big mega deals are going to take place. It's just bound to happen. So I'd expect we'll see a lot more of those in this coming year.
No, absolutely. And look, I think when deal flow picks up, I think it's good for everybody. I think that it allows people to gain liquidity. You see executive turnover, and then you eventually end up seeing job creation, because I think that a figure I read recently is private equity is touching about 1/5 of the U.S. jobs, and it was quite interesting. I was interviewed by Bloomberg before the holiday about the jobs report, and people were concerned, right? I mean, you see payroll growth down or not growing as fast as people think. You see unemployment up, and everybody wants to blame this on artificial intelligence, which to me, we're early days of AI. The mass layoffs are not happening from AI right now. I mean, I think that you're going to see some structural changes from AI, no doubt, but no different than what we've seen over the last 50 years of technology advancement. Technology comes in, it changes the job, task-oriented stuff gets automated, and then adaptation happens. But I think the job situation in Q4 of last year was largely predicated on the fact that the cost of capital has been expensive. Deals have not been happening. And so because deals have not been happening, people are getting ready to do deals. And when people get ready to do deals, Boone, what do? They tighten their belt, right? They go through and they eliminate. And I think with this pickup in deals in 2026, I think towards the back half of the year, I think we're going to start to see the rumblings of a very strong and robust job market, with or without the impact of AI. I think that as these deals get done, I think the right executives are going to get in there. Private equity firms don't buy businesses to shrink them. They buy businesses to grow them. And I think that, look, I think that's one of the exciting things about the back half of 26 is I think we're going to start to see a more robust job market. Wouldn't you agree?
Totally. Yes, I totally agree with all those points. I think that AI is easy to put in a headline and kind of capture the attention, and everything about AI gets attention these days. And so I think that people are quick to sort of jump to considering that AI is already having this big impact on the job market. But I think, in fact, if you look at how AI is actually being used, what it's doing is it's an efficiency amplification, if you will. And we've seen that before. We've seen this movie before in the digitization trend, the transformation with digitization of everything over the past 20 years. That also was viewed as potentially some sort of big threat or concern for what it would mean for the job market. But at the end of the day, it allowed companies to operate more efficiently. And when they operate more efficiently, it means that they have the way to fuel more growth. And that in turn leads to more jobs. They might be different types of jobs than perhaps we saw, 10, 20 years ago, but it does fuel growth. And I'll just also, underline part of what you just said. The figures from Ernst & Young show that 1 in 5 jobs in the United States is touched by private equity in some fashion, either because it's a a role that is hired directly by a PE portfolio company, or it's part of the supply chain serving that company, or in some other way, it's a halo effect of that investment in that company. But 1 in 5, and that's just a massive, massive chunk of the economy that's dependent on that private equity cycle and making sure that that's healthy and operating. And I agree with you 100%. As deal flow picks up and we see more of the cycle going of buying and then selling and then reinvesting, we're going to see that flywheel effect really taking off.
No doubt. Well, it's quite exciting, and I'm very, if the key word last week around 2025 was gratitude, I think the key word in 2026 is optimism. I think that we've got a lot of phenomenal things ahead. As you mentioned with AI, I think the key there is going to be understanding purpose of the role. I think it's going to be understanding adaptation and making sure that we adapt. And, in that, I think about the radiologists. Everybody thought that AI was going to kill radiology. And what did it do? In many cases, there are actually more radiologists now, and it really got them down to their purpose. Their purpose was not to read an image. Their purpose was to diagnose disease. And so now they're able to do that. I think about AI at Bespoke Partners. Our analysts, when we started 5 years ago, their job was to go find executives, to map markets and find executives. Our AI executive index, that took care of the mapping of the market and finding the executives. And our analysts, and we have more of them today, our analyst role is to study the executives and make recommendations on which ones are right for the role. And so, again, when I think about 2026, I think about optimism. I think about our team and just how happy I am with our team and really there to seize the moment. I think this talent market is going to be tight, but I have no doubt our team will rise to the occasion and help our clients continue to solve the most difficult searches. Boone, with that said, happy you're on the team. Appreciate you joining today, and just look forward to seeing how 2026 unfolds.
Optimism. I love it. I absolutely will carry that with me into the new year here, Eric. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.